There is a stretch of highway just outside the city where the morning always sounds the same. Engines humming, brake lights blinking awake. 1,000 people on their way to 1,000 ordinary days. And then, in the space of a single breath, the sound changes. Not louder, quieter. A car drifts across 2 lanes with no one behind the wheel. A coat lies folded on a seat that was full a moment ago. A phone keeps ringing in a hand that is no longer there. No crash, no warning, just absence. Sudden and total, where a person used to be. Somewhere a mother turns to speak to the child beside her, and finds only the seatbelt still fastened. And the question that rises in that instant is the same one this whole moment has been building toward for 2,000 years. Where did they go? And why were you left here to ask? You have heard the word before. Rapture. Maybe in a sermon you half listened to. Maybe in a film that made it look like science fiction. Maybe from a grandmother who spoke of it the way she spoke of whether she could feel coming in her knees. For most people it lives in that strange middle place, too sacred to mock, too distant to take seriously. Something that might happen, someday, to someone, in a future that never quite arrives. But the men who first wrote of it were not writing fiction. They were writing letters. Letters to frighten people, in real cities, who were burying their dead and wondering if hope had a deadline. And into that grief came a promise so strange it should have been impossible to believe. That the dead would not stay dead. That the living would not all taste the grave. That in a moment no longer than a blink, everything ordinary would end. The warning was never meant to scare you. It was meant to wake you before the road outside your window falls silent. Here is what unsettles people when they finally sit with it. The rapture is not described as a slow thing. It is not a season. It is not a gradual fading. It is sudden. It is silent until the trumpet. And it does not announce itself the way disasters do. There is no rising water, no spreading fire, no headline that gives you a week to prepare. The text says it comes like a thief. Not because God is dishonest, but because a thief does not send a letter ahead. You do not get to schedule the hour you are ready. You are either ready, or you are not, when the door opens. And that is the part most of us would rather not hear. Because it takes the one thing we file away under later and sets it down directly in front of us. It asks a question we spend most of our lives avoiding. If it happened on the drive home tonight, which side of that silence would you be on? There is a reason this is called a warning and not merely a teaching. A teaching informs you. A warning changes what you do next. You do not warn a man about something that cannot reach him. You warn him about the thing already on its way. And the strange truth of the last 2,000 years is that the warning has never once expired. Every generation has believed it might be theirs. Some were laughed at for it. Some were right to watch, even if the hour was not yet. But here is what almost no one says out loud. The fact that it has not happened yet is not evidence that it never will. It is the very thing the text predicted you would say. That in the last days people would scoff, and ask where the promise was, and point to how long everything had stayed the same. The delay was never proof of safety. It was always the test of whether you were paying attention. So sit with that a moment longer than is comfortable. Not as theology, as reality. Imagine the people you love most. Picture their faces at your table. Now imagine that table set, the food still warm, and 3 of the chairs empty. Not because anyone walked out. Because they were taken in the same breath the lights flickered. This is not meant to torment you. It is meant to make something real that you have kept safely abstract. Because the rapture, if it is true, is the single most consequential event your life will ever brush against. And if it is true, then nothing about how you spend this ordinary week is actually ordinary. The men who first heard this promise did not answer it with panic. They answered it with watchfulness, a quiet, awake readiness that changed how they lived every hour. And the question this video is going to walk you toward, slowly and honestly, is whether that same readiness is still possible for someone like you, in a world like this. Before we go further, I need to be honest with you about what this is. This is not a video built to frighten you into anything. Fear fades by morning. Fear is the cheapest motive there is. What I want to do is harder, and slower. I want to show you what the scriptures actually say about this moment, not the movie version, not the bumper sticker version, the real one. I want to walk back through where this promise came from.
Through what the world looks like now, measured against the signs that were given. Through the one detail almost everyone overlooks, the detail that quietly changes how the whole picture reads. And I want to do it with reverence,
because this is not entertainment. This is the thing your grandmother felt coming in her bones. Somewhere in the next several minutes, something is going to settle in you. Not panic, clarity. So stay with me, because the part most people have never been told comes near the end, and once you have heard it, you will not look at an ordinary morning the same way again. To understand a warning, you have to know where it came from. And this one did not begin in a pulpit. It began in a letter, written to people who were burying each other faster than they could grieve. A small community, far from home, watching their loved ones die before the promise they had staked everything on had come to pass. And they were afraid of one thing above all, that the dead had missed it. That to fall asleep before the end was to be left out of it forever. Into that fear came the answer. Do not grieve like those who have no hope. The ones who have died have not been forgotten. They will not be last. They will be first. And the living who remain will not be left behind to mourn. They will be gathered up with them, in a single moment, to meet what is coming in the air. The word they used was violent in its tenderness. Caught up, seized, snatched away, the way you pull a child back from the edge of a road without explaining first. Not invited, not escorted, taken. There is no ceremony in it, no procession, no time to pack. It is the speed of rescue, not the pace of ritual. And this is where most people misread the whole thing. They imagine something gentle and slow. The text describes something instant and total, the kind of speed that leaves a coat folded on an empty seat. But here is what almost no one notices. This pattern is older than the letter, older than the church. There was a man, long before, who walked with God so closely that one day he simply was not, because God took him. No grave was dug for him. No body was found. He was here, and then he was with God. And there was a prophet, centuries later, swept up in a whirlwind while another man watched and could only cry out as the sky took him. Two men, in two ages, lifted out of the ordinary without tasting death. The rapture is not a strange new idea bolted onto the end of the Bible. It is the oldest rhythm in it, finally turned toward all of us at once. So the question stops being whether such a thing is possible. The scriptures say it has already happened, twice, to men who were not more deserving than you. The real question is what the present moment is telling us, and whether anyone is still listening. Because the same texts that promised the gathering also describe the world that would surround it. Not a peaceful world. A straining one. Nations rising against nations. Knowledge multiplying faster than wisdom can hold it. People loving comfort more than truth, and calling it freedom. A generation that would hear the warning and shrug, precisely because it had heard it so many times before. Look around without flinching and you will see it. Not as conspiracy, as weather. The acceleration of everything. The way a single morning now carries more noise than an entire year once did. The hunger underneath all the distraction, a low, restless ache that no amount of scrolling ever fills. The text said the days would feel exactly like this. Ordinary on the surface, trembling underneath. And it said that when men were saying peace and safety, that is precisely when the silence would come, which means the danger was never that the warning would be too frightening to believe. The danger was always that it would arrive on a day so unremarkable that no one thought to watch. The most dangerous part of any warning is the moment you start to believe it does not apply to you. And the world has built an entire machinery for producing that feeling. It tells you the end has been predicted 1,000 times and never came. It tells you the people who watch the sky are the people who failed at living. It tells you to be reasonable, to be measured, to file the whole thing under things that frighten the simple. And the strange thing is, the text predicted that voice too. It said that in the last days scoffers would come, asking where the promise was, pointing to how long everything had stayed the same. The mockery was not a sign the warning had failed. It was listed as one of the signs that the hour was near. Sit with how unsettling that is. The very argument used to dismiss it, nothing has changed, nothing will, was written down 2,000 years ago as the thing people would say right before everything changed. You cannot argue your way out of a prophecy that predicted your argument.
And this is the first turn, the place where the ground moves slightly under your feet. Because once you see that, you can no longer treat the delay as safety. The delay was never God forgetting. It was God waiting, patient toward a world that keeps mistaking his patience for his absence. And there is a harder edge to it still. The same letters that promised the gathering, warned that not everyone expecting it would be ready for it. There were those who said the right words, kept the right appearances, carried lamps with no oil in them. When the cry came at midnight, and it always comes at midnight, when no one is watching, they went looking for what they should have already had. And the door closed before they returned. The warning was never only for the people outside the faith. It was, more sharply, for the ones inside it, who had let their watching grow cold while their certainty stayed warm. That is the part that should stop you. It is easy to picture the rapture as something that sorts the obvious, the cruel from the kind, the believer from the scoffer. But the scriptures describe a thinner line than that. 2 men in a field, one taken, one left. 2 women grinding at the same mill, one taken, one left. Side by side, same work, same day, same ordinary morning. The difference between them invisible to everyone but God. Which means the question is not whether you would be surprised. Everyone will be surprised. The question is whether you would be ready in the part of you that no one else can see. There is one detail in all of this that almost no one stops to consider, and it changes the shape of everything once you see it. We treat the rapture as an event, a thing that happens to us, suddenly, from the outside. But the texts describe it more like a recognition. The trumpet does not create the readiness. It reveals it. The oil was either in the lamp before midnight, or it was not. The gathering does not transform the unprepared into the prepared in the instant it arrives. It simply lifts those who were already his. Which means the work the warning is really asking of you is not panic in the final hour. It is something quieter, done long before. A life already turned in the right direction when the door opens. And this is where it stops being theology and becomes personal. Because if that is true, then the most important thing about you is not what you believe in a crisis. It is what you have become in the ordinary. The man caught up was not gathered for the eloquence of his last prayer. He was gathered because he had walked with God so long that being taken was simply the next step on a road he was already on. Readiness, in the end, is not a performance you summon at the trumpet. It is a direction you have been facing the whole time. The rapture does not ask, "What would you say if you knew it was today?" It asks, "Who are you on the days you are certain it is not?" So bring it down to where you actually live. Not to the highway, not to the empty seat. To your own kitchen, your own phone, your own restless evening. The warning is not asking you to be afraid of an empty chair at the table. It is asking whether the way you are living right now is the way you would want to be found living. That is the whole weight of it. Not terror, not a countdown, just an honest mirror held up to an ordinary Tuesday. Because if the gathering reveals rather than transforms, then this week, this unremarkable, half-distracted week, is not a rehearsal for the moment that matters. It is the moment that matters. You are already writing the answer to the question the trumpet will only read aloud. And there is a mercy hidden in that, if you are willing to feel it. It means you are not waiting helplessly for a verdict you cannot influence. The warning came to you, while there is still road left, while the morning is still full of engines and brake lights and people on their way to ordinary days. That is grace, that you were told, that you heard it, that the door is still open as these words reach you. The ones who were taken before were not taken because they earned the sky. They were taken because they had stopped living as if this world were the whole of it. And that turning is still available to you, right now, in the part of you that no one else can see. Step back now and let the threads come together, because they were never separate. A letter written to the grieving, promising that the dead would rise first. 2 men in the old world, lifted out of the ordinary without tasting death. A world straining at the seams, exactly as it was said it would. A voice that mocks the warning, named long ago as part of the warning itself. A door that closes at midnight on lamps that were never filled. 2 people side by side, one taken, one left, divided by something only God could see. And underneath all of it, the quiet truth that the gathering does not create what it finds, it reveals it. None of these were separate teachings. They were one current, running through 2,000 years, toward a single morning that has not yet come. And the gravity of that is not fear, it is clarity. To live now is to live inside a chapter much larger than yourself, not at its beginning, and not, it seems, far from its turning. That is not a thought meant to crush you. It is meant to wake you the way cold water wakes a sleeping man. Because clarity is the one thing the noise of this world is designed to take from you. It wants you distracted until the trumpet. It wants the warning filed under later until later runs out. And the simple, sober act of hearing this, really hearing it, is itself the beginning of the watching the scriptures asked for. You are more ready in this moment than you were when the video began. That counts for more than you know. So here is where I leave you, and I leave you with no fear, only this. The highway is still humming. The morning is still ordinary. The seat beside you is still full. And the question is no longer, where did they go? It is, which way are you already facing? You were warned not to terrify you, but because someone who could not reach you wanted to. The door is open as long as these words are still in your ears. And when it is no longer ordinary, when the sound finally changes, let it find you already turned toward home. Watch, not in dread, in readiness. The trumpet will not ask you to become someone in an instant. It will only show the world who you already are. If this stirred something in you, follow the channel. There is more here that you were meant to hear. Share it with 5 people who need this warning while there is still road left to share it on. And leave a sincere comment. Not whether you agree, but what moved you, what you felt settle in your chest as you listened. Then tell me what the next video should be. What sign, what question, what passage you cannot stop thinking about. I read them, and I am listening.